This is an in-box review of the 1/48 scale Hobby Boss Focke Wulf FW 190D9. This is a really nice kit and very inexpensive. I managed to pick this one up for £9. Even the RRP price is only £14, so it's very easy to pick up, anywhere from sort of £10 to £14, and it's well worth it. So having a look inside the box. First off, we've got the instructions and the colour callouts, and you've got two options here. The first one is from JG 301 in April 1945, and that's quite a familiar aircraft with the red and yellow banding there on the tail, and it's a nice option with the standard late war camouflage of ROM 81, 82, and as it says here 83, but recent research seems to think that ROM 83 is actually a blue, so there was only really, as far as what I go on, is 80, 81 and 82, and anything else is just variations of those colours. But you've also got a call out for 83 as well, and they're calling out in Mr. Hobby, Vallejo, Model Master, Tamiya and Humbrol, but bear in mind there's only Vallejo and Mr. Hobby where these colours are actually available. So that's something to maybe think about. Then we've got another option here, which is JG6, and it's Black 12, and this is the 8th of May 1945, and that's a nice interesting scheme. You've got a different call out here, which is ROM 77 Primer, so that's a new one on me, but that's this grey colour here, and on the underneath there as well, so something very different there. Then looking at the instructions, it's typical stuff from Hobby Boss, same as Trumpeter. You've got a parts call out there, and then we're straight into the cockpit, building up with the engine and the exposed part that you see from the undercarriage, through the wheel bay, sorry. Then you've got the tail wheel, and then the fuselage comes together. We do have to put the exhaust in at this time, which might be a little bit of a pain for some, because you have to hand paint them in or mask them off, but nevertheless that all goes together there. It's a very nicely detailed cockpit straight out of the box, and the instrument panels are covered with a decal. Then we had a few more bits here with the top of the engine cowling here, horizontal stabilisers in the rudder, and the rear deck there for the cockpit, which is actually a photo etch part. Then the canopy starts to come together with a few details on the underneath here, and then that's put on and presumably masked if you're going to be airbrushing. And then we've got the wheel bay, which is built up of one piece here, it seems, which is quite nice, which slots in, and then you add a few details into that before putting that in, and then you get the option to open up some holes here if you're going to put any bombs or drop tanks for the underside of the aircraft. Then the ailerons and flaps go on, and the top half of the wing comes on in two pieces. Then the engine cowling goes on, and you've got two options here for closed louvers or open louvers there, and then the fuselage comes onto the wings here, and then it's all about getting the plane to a finish here with the undercarriage going on and the details on the underside of the aircraft. Lastly, we've got the propeller which goes on, so you've got the propeller blades, which is one piece, and then you've got the rear plate and the nose cone that goes on to make up the whole propeller assembly. Then that goes on quite nicely, and then we've got drop tanks and bombs on the underneath, and lastly, it's at this stage where the air scoop comes in, which is quite a recognisable part of this aircraft with the large air scoop air intake here. And there's an etch part that goes on the inside of that as well, an etch grill with a small photo etch flap or ledge there just before it as well. And that completes the build. I have built a similar kit to this from Hobby Boss, and it was a very nice build. It went together extremely well. Then looking at the decals, the first thing that strikes you with this whole kit when opening it is extremely well packaged. Everything is individually wrapped, and the decals here have the carrier film taped to them from both sides. I mean, you really can't fault that at all. So I'll just cut that down there. Then looking at the decals, they're very, very glossy, which is nice. I prefer that personally. And we do have a set of swastikas there in 2 halves. And here are the instrument panels, instrument dials here, which are perfectly usable. They're clear, so you paint the instrument panel and then just put these on, which is a much better way of doing it. You also got some, there's no side panels, so you have to paint the instrument panels on the side of the cockpit. Everything looks very nice, although there is, I am noticing there's a sort of, don't know how you describe it. There's certainly marking over my decals here. I'm not sure whether it's just where the film's been there or what. I'm not sure whether that will be an issue or not. Again, you won't know until you put these into water, but it looks okay from here, so fingers crossed they'll be okay. So from the visual point of view, they look very good, but obviously you can't really tell much as far as decals are concerned just by looking at them. Then we've got the small photo etch fret, which for me is actually a bit of a strange thing. It's very nice to have this in the price of the kit, but with the parts that are added here, I mean, as far as this bit's concerned, I think that would have been fine to have that in plastic. And it would have been a lot more useful to have a set of harnesses put in there, or both. You know, there's plenty of space here where they could have got a set of harnesses in. So I don't know why there's no harnesses added. I always like to put them into my build, so that's a little bit of a downside for me. But again, very well packaged, and this photo etch is covered in a plastic sticky film as well. So I mean, that really is trying to prevent the bending, as well as it having a piece of card and being individually packaged, so that's absolutely superb. Then getting into the plastic parts, we have our whole box full of bagged sprues, which is very nice to see. So starting with whichever one comes first. Looks like we've got the propeller. So this is the very recognisable propeller here for the later war Focke Wulfs, which is a very it's like a paddle shaped propeller, so that's a very nice piece there. One piece moulding and individually packed, so that's a very nice option there. And there's nothing wrong with that. That looks really, really good. Then we've got the I think it's the oil cooler. I'm calling it an air scoop, but it's an air intake on the side of the fuselage, very prominent part. And again, that is in 2 halves, so you have a seam line in the middle, but in fact I think the part actually has a natural seam line running through it, but it'd be worth checking that. Don't go on what I say. So that's a very nice piece, again, individually moulded. Then we've got a nice sprue here with parts for the cockpit and the wheel well, as well as the wheels themselves. So you've got inside detail here on the landing gear doors and on the inside of the wheel bay, and then flipping it over you have all the detail from the other side of things. So you've got quite a lot of detail on the seat there, which is very nice. Very nicely detailed wheels here as well, with the rears and the fronts. We have a seam line in the middle on the tread, so just have to watch that. And raised detail here on the instrument panel as well. And everything looks really nice. I'm going to be building this one. This is a bit of a sort of a quick build, a kind of mojo builder for me. So I'll be doing this one out of the box, and I think that would be a very nice kit straight out of the box. Then we've got the fuselage halves with very nice recessed panels and access hatches, and a few small areas with a bit of rivet detail. No detail on the inside because it's not needed, it's all covered by parts that you put into the cockpit. And we've got the rudder there as well, and that is very, very fine stuff. So that's nice to see. Then on to the wings. So you've got the one piece there for the underside, and lots of lovely recessed detail there with hatches, rivets and panel lines, and the same for the top halves of the wings as well. Very nicely moulded, extremely sharp details here, so it's very nice to see. Then we've got a weapons loadout, so you've got two different sprues here with different types of bombs. You've got smaller bombs, larger bombs and drop tanks, as well as the bits to attach it to the actual aircraft. Then a few more bits. So we've got this sprue here, which has the ailerons and flaps, as well as the horizontal stabilizers and the engine cowling here with the flaps open and closed. The nose cone there, and parts for this engine that you see through the bottom. There's an open wheel bay, apparently very noticeable on these D9 models, where you could see through the wheel bay and see the rear of the engine, and there's quite a few model kits that miss that, and this does have it. That's the bit there, and the engine sticks off the back. So that's a nice bit of detail there as well. And then lastly, as far as the plastic parts are concerned, we've got the top of the engine cowling there as well, with the guns and the gun troughs there. So that's very nice, and I think that all goes in on natural panel lines as well, so that saves any problems. And then lastly, just to show you how great the packaging is, you've got a bag here with the clear parts in it, and they're wrapped in a piece of protective foam as well, and they are absolutely crystal clear, really, really sharp. I don't know how well this will show up here, but I mean, they are extremely nice. There's hardly any distortion. It is a very difficult mould to get there on that bubble canopy, so there isn't obviously always going to be some issues, but I mean, that's very nice. Certainly there's you don't need to worry too much there. I can't see any distortion there on that. And the windscreen is crystal clear as well. So that's a very nice kit there, and highly recommended. I mean, for the price, I don't see how you can go wrong. It seems extremely well detailed, on a par with anything in the scale next to it. So the Tamiya and the Edward kit. Not sure about the Hasegawa kit, haven't seen that myself. So, you know, for under £15, I think it's highly recommended, and it should be very nice, just built straight out of the box. So that is the Focke Wulf FW 190 D9 from Hobby Boss in 1/48 scale.